What's up, webheads? Welcome to another episode of After the Poll. This is the video series where I take all the comic books that I've read for the entire comic book week and see if they live up to the hype and if I'm going to continue on buying them, and I will give you my top 5. Before we get started, guys, just want to show off the fancy new hat that I just got. Leave me in the comments below, what do you think of it? And a warning here, the books were not very good this week. Okay, so the first book we're going to be talking about today, guys, is a Dark Web tie-in, and this was Dark Web Venom, and this is issue 16. This was the last tie-in to the event, and let me just tell you guys, I said it on my Spider-Man weekly review, this book had nothing to offer, just like the overall event. We've got to see Kamala Khan interrupt a very important fight between father and son, and Dylan wanted to destroy his father, and in the instance of the fight, teamed up with Red Goblin, we see Kamala come in there and go, "You can't do that, you can't destroy your dad, you're gonna do something that you regret." And there's basically this fight and this arguing and all this stuff that happened, and at the end of the day, nothing happened. It was Madeline Pryor collecting a Venom for the big fight at the end of the Dark Web, and nothing got resolved. So the whole point of this tie-in was absolutely nothing. Nothing was accomplished. I guess the only thing you want to say that was created out of this was the return of the Red Goblin, which is Normie Osborn, and we will see a spin-off series off of that. But as an overall comic and a tie-in to the Dark Web event, just a complete waste of time, just like the event itself. So speaking of the Dark Web, we had the Dark Web finale, which in this issue, we get some better artwork, I feel, than Ed McGuinness. I thought Adam Kubert's artwork was actually pretty good in this book. But at the end of the day, we just see a pretty much worthless fight between Ben Reilly and Spider-Man. In fact, it was a very lack of a fight. We get to see Madeline Pryor retrieve her scythe once again as she tells the demons of Limbo that don't forget your queen, and she gets all powerful and mighty, and they all turn on Ben Reilly. They arrest Ben Reilly, and then Ben Reilly goes to jail, and we don't even get to see what happens to Hallows Eve. She actually disappears, and we don't know what happens to Rex Rap, which for a lot of people, from what I hear in the comments below, that Rex Rap is actually a fun character, and they would like to see more of that character. But when it comes to an overall event, nobody really stood out. You didn't see the characters really come together at the end of the event. Maybe you saw Gold Goblin and Miss Marvel for a brief second, but they didn't add anything to the book. But again, what was this? What was the purpose of this event? When you got introduced to all these characters like Gold Goblin and the Goblin Queen, or Queen Goblin, whatever she is, which, by the way, she wasn't even in this event hardly at all. It felt like there was a cool lead up. Same with Chasm. Like, it felt like he had a motive. He was dark, he was creepy, he would do anything to stop Peter Parker, to get his memories back. It seemed like there was a motive, and they didn't capitalize on that whatsoever. There was nothing at stake at the end of the day, and everything is pretty much the same. We just get a couple of new side characters, and that is it. All right, next book we're talking about is Children of the Black Sun. This is issue 2. I was really digging the first issue of this. I liked the concept of it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I loved like this apocalyptic situation, and we got introduced to these children and all this stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, when I got to this issue, I was like, this is weird, man. This gets into some like devil-like stuff, and I was just like, it's just kind of a little bit all over the place. And I'm telling you guys, like, I did not like a lot of comics. This, in fact, was probably my least favorite comic book week out of many weeks. I couldn't tell you the last time I disliked this many comics, to the point where my top 5 is just, it's there's some solid books there, but it's just very weak in my opinion. But we get more of these kids and what they do, and just, I don't know, I didn't like it. I didn't find any of the characters really interesting. The more we dove deeper into these kids and what they do and what they are, you get to see one of the younger kids use their persuasive personalities for the first time in it, and I don't know, I just thought it was off. We get this heavy dialogue with this scientist when they were doing these studies with these kids. I don't know, I didn't find it very interesting this time around, and I was like really bored by it, and I thought it was weird, especially the introduction, like how the mom like it just believes in God and just punished the kid for just fantasizing over this girl. It's just weird, man. And I don't know, I after reading this, it's funny how it could take such a crazy turn. Like, I really liked the first issue, and then it just got away from the whole Black Sun and just focused on the kids. And maybe I should have thought that through more, because more about the children than the actual event in itself, right? So I don't know, just too weird for me. I think I'm gonna drop this one too. Okay, so we have the introduction to Bloodline, Daughter of Blade. This is issue 1. This is a story of Bree, who is the daughter of Blade. And this is a story of a girl who's coming of age and finding out her powers. It reminds me a lot of Teen Wolf. I discussed this in my Worthy Ones video, where it's like she doesn't know what she has until it's actually happening to her. Her mom kind of kept these secrets from her as well. So we get to see kind of the life that she led before she's developing her powers, how she was very active in school, she was a baseball player, things like that. And now that she's starting to get these abilities, she's trying to hide herself from people and whatnot. And she's only close to a couple of friends. One night, something really bad happens. A vampire comes to try to attack her, and then she kind of like defeats the vampire. So her and her mom have this big sit down, they discuss things, everything that is going on with her. There's this new girl that's introduced in school, and we find out that she has a secret too. She might be a vampire hunter, she's a vampire, we don't quite know. We get introduced to Blade at the end of the issue, and that was that. So what did I think about this book? Well, when I read it, I thought this book was average. I thought it was okay. It's a 5-issue mini-series, so you don't have to invest a lot of time into the series, or you could just drop it. I might give it an issue 2, but at the end of the day, when you're introducing a brand new character, you want to be intrigued by her, you want to learn more about her. And for as long as it took for this comic book to really develop, I didn't feel like it was very like, oh my god, this is so awesome, I gotta read issue 2. That's what you want, so people can read a second issue. It just felt very average and very forgettable for me. I might try the second issue just to see where it goes. All right, so the next comic book we're going to be talking about this week goes to Blood Tree. This is issue 1. This was a book that I kind of picked up on impulse, right? It was a book about 2 detectives teaming up to try to solve this suicide case where when they fell from the sky that had angel wings. Pretty interesting, right? Well, for me, the characters just didn't seem interesting. Their interactions with each other was very flat. There was this detective who has this normal family, and this one kid is obsessed with dead animals, which is kind of weird. But this whole issue was just basically them obviously trying to solve this case. And they're trying to get any leads that they can possibly find, whether it's talking to parents or other people within the community. And then there was this second murder that actually happened, where we wind up seeing this mystery character who actually creates the wings on its victims, right? And so then our detectives find the next victim in a baseball field, and and so the story continues basically. And again, you get a little bit more out of the child of the detective, how again he's infatuated with like dead animals and stuff. This was okay book, but at the same time I was bored by it. I didn't find it very memorable, where I was like, man, I gotta buy that second issue because this first issue really intrigued me. I really love this case and this mystery, but the main part of it too was the characters. Like, I just felt like the detectives were just really not in sync with each other. I felt like they didn't have a good relationship with each other, and I didn't feel like I should, like, why do I care about these guys, right? I felt like I was reading an episode of Law and Order, but without the characters, right? It just felt very flat for me. So same thing here. Sorry, Mr. Tomasi, I'm not going to be continuing this book either. Silver Surfer Ghostlight issue 1 was another book for me that was a disappointment this week. I talked about this in depth more in my Worthy Ones video, where we have Silver Surfer not even in this book. We get to learn about this family who has this house that's in the town of Sweetwater, almost said Stillwater, and they move there. They find themselves homesick. They do some investigation about this town. There's something strange that is going on inside of it, and they set off this accidental ray beam that sends off this signal to Silver Surfer, and then what happens is it ignites this grave, which I don't know if this future superhero is like the uncle. I don't know. But he rises from the grave. Silver Surfer realizes this. And then all of a sudden it looks like they're going to start doing battle with each other. The artwork was okay in this book. It kind of fit the tone of it. But again, it's just, this wasn't anything that just really was like, this is so well written. This was so good. Like, I want to continue reading this. Like, I read Silver Surfer, honestly, to read Silver Surfer. I like villains being introduced, but when I don't see Silver Surfer until the very last page, that's kind of like the Hulk book that most recently came out, I'm like checked out of it, man. Now I have a feeling that Silver Surfer will be in this book a little bit more going forward, but it was just like, do I really care about this hidden superhero that's been being built for 50 years or whatever it is? I don't know. But again, it just wasn't something that just like excited me, and that was the problem with this week's comics. And I know I keep sounding like a broken record here, but that's what I need to continue to read all these new comics that came out. And it's a little bit troublesome because it's like, what am I going to read in future weeks? Another #1 comic book that came out this week was Almighty issue 1. This book by far was a complete failure on all levels of comic books. Unfortunately, this was a book that took place in the year 2098. The world has definitely have fallen to crap. There's this one girl that escaped this world. She is a triage nurse, and she wanted to get away from it, so she ran away. She got into this 18-wheeler. The 18-wheeler was shot down. These scavengers went after this girl, and she's running away. There was this girl that was hired to rescue her, and that was the entire issue. Sounds kind of exciting. The way it was delivered in the comic book was horrible. I did not like the artwork. It was hardly any dialogue, and basically they tell you the whole thing that happens in one sentence. Right here, one sentence, right? It says, a girl has been abducted, and the killer hired to find her and bring her home. You see that in this entire book. They just gave away the whole plot in one sentence because that's all that happens. Like I said, there's no dialogue. It's just there. You see the girl running, and you would think, okay, maybe that might have a lot of action or anything like that. Nope, it was just very boring. Just little panels, just nothing there. The artwork wasn't that great. You didn't learn a lot about the society and in the world that it was. You don't care about the main character that was running. You don't care about the character that was rescuing her. You don't care about the villains that were chasing her. Nothing there. Complete failure on all levels, unfortunately. Not buying this book either. All right, are we ready to talk about some decent comic books finally? Like, my #5 and #4 weren't the best comic books. They were good. They weren't the best because they're setting things up, but still you can see there's a solid story, plot, characters in these books where it's like, okay, here we go. So Radiant Black, we're on issue 21 here. We got Nathan and Marshall sharing the power of Radiant Black, and they're trying to prevent this war that's happening. So they're trying to gather any type of information that's going on regarding this war, and they find out that one of their villains that they have defeated or fought in the past by the name of Shift is trying to sell weapons to other people to, you know, help them, I guess, stop the war or protect themselves from the war. And then you wind up seeing, you know, Marshall and Nathan fight Shift and try to get all the information that he has on his phone. we get to see this team up with the other, I think his name is Radiant Yellow, and they're building this machine to, again, prepare themselves for war. The artwork is always really good in this book. The story is always a lot of fun. When there's action in it, the action is so dynamic and explosive and bright and vibrant. Not a lot of action in this issue. There was a lot of like talking and just, again, setup. That's what this was. Again, preparing to set up for the war. The intriguing thing about this book, though, right now is that we have our Radiant Blacks, Nathan and Marshall, sharing the power, and the power is starting to cut out on them. It's not being reliable. They'll be flying in the sky, power just shuts off. I don't know what's going to go on with that, so we'll see. Number 4 is Rogue Sun. Let me tell you guys, if you are not reading Rogue Sun, definitely go out there, pick this book up. This is a phenomenal superhero book. Read the first trade, find the back issues, whatever it is, written by Ryan Perro. This book has some history behind it when it comes to the stone, where we find out who our first Rogue Son ever was, right? And how it corrupted him and whatnot. And we just get to see great family dynamics in this comic book. Our main character is the name of Dylan. And we just see more things being developed in the history. We find out that he actually has now a true person guiding him, but the person that's guiding him, again, is that first Rogue Knight that I showed you. And he has to uncover this relic. And we think, as the reader, this relic is going to be a very bad thing. But Dylan, as the character, is kind of naive, and he kind of trusts this guy that's kind of guiding him because he was a past Rogue Son character. And he takes him to this other realm. And what this other realm seems to be, what it's going to do is it's going to have demons come through, or the devil come through, and other weird characters come through. So they have to retrieve this relic called the Quiver. Very interesting. And then they come across this Raven Queen at the end. But this book is so different. It really knows how to interact with the readers, whether it was the choose your own adventure book or maybe turning your pages upright like this, so it kind of engages the reader a little bit more. Every time you get introduced to a new character and a little twist and turn, there's another side story going on with a boy and his father, how maybe in the future this boy can be a very heavy arch nemesis to Rogue Son. So I cannot wait to see how this book continues to develop, but you can tell there's a heavy story here, and as a reader, you want to read more. Number 3 goes to the Flash 1 Minute War. This is issue 1. You know what? This just kind of adds to the event that's going on with the 1 Minute War, as you get introduced to other different types of characters and kind of also know what's going on with the Empress's husband, on how this whole faction wind up being created and their lust for other planets and to conquer them, and how he got married to her. And it makes you want to read more of Flash, because especially this event, because you want to know who this Empress character is, right? I thought she was kind of cool. Then you have this character by the name of Avery, who does a battle against the character by the name of Darkwu, who was frozen in time as well because of what's going on in Earth. Which I'm not familiar with that character. I want to know who she is. If you guys know who she is, let me know in the comments below. And then we wind up getting this third story that has to do with Godspeed, which I thought was really awesome, as he's threatening the faction as well in here. And we get to see this whole thing that was taking place at some event, and Godspeed just happened to be there, and you get to see him on the final page of that particular story, which I really liked. So here he was here. So that was cool. And then in that very last story, I had to deal with something in the future, which I wasn't really into. But all the other stories were great. The artwork was great. And I felt like this added a little bit more to the 1 Minute War story, and especially that very first story that we were introduced. And I'm on board with the Flash as long as our creator is still on this book. So my number 2 book, you're going to be completely surprised on. You're never going to expect this to hit number 2. Savage Dragon issue 263. This book has not come out in months, but you know what? this was just a comic book why I fell in love with comics. It just had a lot of action. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of violence. You know, even though I don't always agree with what Erik Larsen is doing these days in his comic books and kind of the messages he puts in them, I still enjoy the actual like story and the characters, and his artwork is not quite the same as it once was, but again, I just had a lot of fun. I opened up to this page where I shouldn't show you, but there was this story about a character by the name of Mako, right, who starts terrorizing Dragon and everybody on the beach, right? So what this did was it reminded you of almost an issue of Jaws. So we wind up getting to see the Dragon family wind up going to the beach, spending time. They run off, they go play in the ocean stuff, and they make friends and they're hanging out. And the next thing you wind up seeing is that we see one of the Savage Dragon girls winds up getting attacked by Mako, and she was hanging out with a friend here, and the Mako dragon winds up attacking this little boy or girl, I should say, and it rips her apart, and the parents are like, no! And then you get to see Malcolm Dragon go after Mako, and they just start this huge ass battle with each other, and just Mako's like, you can't stop me, I'm going to defeat you, and you're like all into this stuff. And then, you know, Savage Dragon has this particular power where if it gets into another person's blood, like eventually they're going to explode, and that's what you think you're going to get here, and you think like everyone is going to die, and then all of a sudden they wake up in a hospital room, and you're like, what? You're like, what happened? And then one of the Savage Dragon kids are missing, and we don't know where they're at. So, and it leaves you with that cliffhanger. So it was just like, you're just into this balls to the wall battle, but then it's just one page, it just flips the tone, and it just like sucks all that energy out of you, and you're like, what? And then you don't know when you're going to get the next issue of Savage Dragon. Now, Erik Larsen claims that he was in a tough place for a little while and he hopes to get this stuff out on time. So we'll see if that actually comes true. But I love this issue. It had so much intensity. I love the family dynamic in this book. And they're missing one of their kids, man. So yeah, looking forward to the next issue. All right, so the #1 book, and I'm telling you guys, it's finally back. After 3 issues of this, I'm convinced that Miles Morales Spider-Man is back. This is so far the best 3 continuous issues that I have read from Miles Morales Spider-Man. Cody Ziegler is doing an awesome job with this. This has so much going in this particular comic book. We talk about villains being introduced in comic books that are new and different, and you feel like you want to care for the villains, or you feel like that they're going to give Miles a good challenge for the long term. Well, it just seems like this new villain here by the name of Rabble has something going for her, right? She's like this high-tech genius. She can interact with all kinds of different electronics, hack into them, do whatever it is, and you get to see the story of her parents, how they fell in love, how they gave birth to her, how her mom died of cancer, and right away you kind of feel bad for this girl. And then you get Tiana, who is Miles' girlfriend, says, boo-hoo, sorry for your story, you're not the only one that suffered in life. And she goes, I get that, but I'm here to fix it, and I'm here to take care of things. And her journey is so interesting, right? And the reason why she has it out for Miles is because she was supposed to go to the same school as Miles, but it was a lottery and she did not get picked. Miles got picked, and Miles wasted his opportunity at that school, and she has this vendetta against him because she feels like her future was robbed from her. That is great character development there when it comes to a villain. And what Miles Morales Spider-Man has been missing is that villain element. So I love how we're introducing a new character here, right? We get to see the wrap up of the battle between Misty Knight, Miles, and Scorpion, which was a lot of fun. And this was a great book because by the time you get to the end of it, we get to see Rabble infect Miles' phone and says that Genki is, in danger. He goes to him and he finds out that it's not really him, but we get to see the one final pinup page of Rabble here getting ready to do battle against Miles. What a great introductory story arc so far when it comes to Miles Morales Spider-Man. If you guys are on the fence about picking this up like I was, pick it up. It's great. I'm sure you can find the first 2 issues of this comic book, but I think Cody Ziegler is doing a bang-up job, and this is a must-read and by far the pick of the week for me. All right, guys, so there you have it. There are all the comic books I read for the week. Sorry I was a little bit negative on all that stuff, but I'm just speaking my truth here. So I let you know what comic books to buy because that is my purpose, right? So as always, guys, if you love my content, I'll leave you more content right here. In fact, keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember, always read those comics. I'll see you guys real soon. Take care.